Washington as Commander-in-Chief. Why was George Washington chosen? George Washington was chosen over candidates such as John Hancock because of his previous military experience. As you can see in this picture, George Washington is on a white horse, and in many pictures, whenever you see a white horse, George Washington will usually be on it. Another question asked was, did George Washington receive pay for his position? George Washington did not receive pay for his position. Why, you might ask? He did not receive pay because he requested no pay in his job as Commander-in-Chief. He was chosen Commander-in-Chief in 1775. In this picture, as you see, this is George Washington. This one is the Treaty of Alliance with France. Why did the French form an alliance with the Americans? The French formed an alliance with Americans so they had a military alliance stating that France and the U.S. agreed to have separate peace with Great Britain. Who does Congress send to France and why? Benjamin Franklin, Silas Deane, and Arthur Lee were sent to France because it was promoting trade between the two countries. This picture shows the American flag and the French flag. These two were together as an alliance, so this shows how they were together and helping each other in this war. The treaty was signed on February 6, 1776, creating a military alliance between the America and the French against Great Britain. This is the Declaration of Independence. As you can see in the picture, there is a signature at the top that is circled. That is John Hancock's signature. What was the goal and purpose of the Declaration of Independence? The goal and purpose was to make the 13 colonies have independence and freedom. They wanted their own government to choose and to decide what they could do and how they would live. This is a picture of when the Declaration of Independence was being discussed. The discussion was about the details and what would put on the Declaration of Independence, what laws, what rights, what rules were to be followed. And people would all put their information in as one. Who was asked to help draft the Declaration of Independence? Ben Franklin was asked to help draft the Declaration of Independence. How did the Declaration of Independence help other countries? They gave 13 colonies independence to trade with other countries. So then the countries could have more import and export and more economy business. This is the Article of Confederation. This picture shows the Article of Confederation and Perpetual Union. When were the Articles of Confederation written? They were written in 1777, but not signed until 1781. What were the realistic outcomes of the Articles of Confederation? The articles did not work well at first, but then the details were figured out by the government and the people. This picture shows the government discussing what the Articles of Confederation were going to be about and what type of rules or rights were going to be put on them. What was the original purpose for the Articles? The Articles created a loose confederation and a weak government. The power was left to the state government since the other governments were weak and could not handle what was being put towards them. So this picture also shows how the government was having the power to rule other places. This picture shows the Treaty of Paris. These are artifacts from museums and the government. When and where was the Treaty of Paris signed? The Treaty of Paris was signed in Paris. The talks about peace in Paris started in 1782 between Ben Franklin and Richard Oswald. The Treaty of Paris was signed in 1783. Who were the three Americans that were involved with the signing of the Treaty of Paris? Those three Americans that were involved were Benjamin Franklin, John Jay, and John Adams. Which article of the treaty was most important to the Americans? Britain recognized the 13 colonies to be free and independent states, but then Britain had no claim on the states. That was most important to the Americans because then they got what they worked for, and the people had their own independence and their freedom. What was the primary goal of the treaty? The main goal was to have freedom and independence for the people. Who represented the British at the signing? The person who represented the British was Richard Oswald. This picture shows the people who discussed and talked about the treaty. This is the Constitution of the United States. This picture shows the Constitution. Define ratify. Ratify means to sign or to give formal consent to an agreement, contract, or treaty, making the document valid officially. When was the Constitution ratified? Or when was the Constitution signed or given formal consent? The Constitution Convention was signed by the Constitution on September 17, 1787. Who had more power in the Constitution of the United States? The federal government had more power. Why, do you ask? Because they had more say. What was the problem with who had more power? The states could say one thing, but it would go to the federal government, and they would either approve or disapprove, so therefore, the states didn't have much say. They could say one thing and do what they wanted and make this law and have people follow it, but then the federal government would step in, and then they would either take the law out or approve of the law and let the people follow the law that the states made. This picture shows a gavel and a We the People, or the Constitution paper. This can show that the federal government had the law, which represents the gavel, on how a judge has a gavel and they have the power. This is the Federalist Papers. The picture right here says the Federalist, a collection of essays, hence the name Essays, written in favor of the new Constitution as agreed upon by the Federal Convention, September 17, 1787. Who were the writers of the Federalist Papers? They were written by John Jay, James Madison, and Alexander Hamilton. How many were written, and did the Americans really know the authors? There were 85 different papers written. Again, hence the name Essays. The Americans did not really know the authors at first, but then they have figured them out, and now they do know them. Where does the name Federalist Papers come from? The Federalist Papers were originally newspaper articles written in support of the Constitution. Explain the importance of Federalist Paper number 84. The important is that it takes upon the objection proposed from the Constitution. Define Federalists and what they support. A Federalist is an advocate or supporter of the federal system of government.